On my left wrist, the Greubel Forsey Invention Piece 1. Limited edition of 11 pieces, retail price over $500,000. On my right wrist, Apple Watch, Series 5, fully kitted out, $900. Now this is the watch that is supposed to kill this. What do I think? Stay tuned. So here it is, the new latest and greatest. This is the Apple Watch Series 5. This is the titanium edition that they call it. And I thought, what better time than now to take a little bit of time out on this channel and finally review an Apple Watch. So, of course, those of you who know my channel know that I specialize in extremely expensive, crazy, rare, independent watches made by the absolute best watchmakers in the world and to the highest levels of quality. So it may surprise some of you to know that I actually wear an Apple Watch quite often. I've had every version since the original one, and I have a few thoughts, so let's dig right in. Now, first I want to talk about the hardware. Again, this is called the Edition. It's in titanium. Titanium is new for the Series 5, and it's quite nice. It's 44 millimeters, which in real watch guy talk is actually quite a big watch. But in the Apple Watch ecosystem, it's fairly normal size. They only make two sizes. This is the bigger one, and the way that the case is made, their 44 millimeters is not so big. The case is pretty nicely finished for a utilitarian object. It's in DLC, which is diamond-like coating titanium, which is a material that's pretty familiar to all us high-end watch guys. The Apple Watch has kind of a nice mechanized finish under it. Nice for the price point, and it feels nice. It's cool for an industrial object, but it would never fly in high-end watchmaking. When haute or lingerie watchmakers use ADLC titanium, they'll take a hand-finished case with polished and satin-finished parts, and then they'll DLC coat it. And so you get all of that different play together, and it's quite a bit finer than you would be able to achieve with a kind of mass-produced machine finish here. But considering the price point here, I think this is quite nice for the object that it is. Now, one thing I really love about the Apple Watch is the strap system. The system is awesome. The straps stay on really well. They're incredibly easy to remove. You touch this button and they slide right out like that, and then they click in. This is something that is kind of insane that modern watchmakers haven't figured out a better system for. Generally, we use spring bars, which you need a tool, and you've got to go into your very expensive watch and mess with a sharp metal end, and almost everybody scratches the inside of their lugs, and so it's just kind of a crazy thing. Apple really killed it with their strap system, and because it's such a popular product, you know, there's a million different straps. Apple makes really cool ones. This is their leather one, but a lot of third-party companies make really cool straps as well, and the ease to switch them out is pretty awesome. This is actually a big feature for me because I like to wear it on this leather strap, but one of the things that I use it a lot for, and we'll get into kind of my use cases soon, is exercise. And so for that, I like to swap on a rubber strap, and you know, it's a matter of a few seconds, and I don't need a tool and I don't need anything. So that's really fantastic. So one thing that I really don't like about the Apple Watch is the software, and you would think that Apple would be able to do a better job of that. But as I said, I've had every Apple Watch since the original one, which didn't even have a name, and the Series 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5. And I still can't quite figure out what these two buttons do in various apps. I finally figured out that they have this cycle tracking, just in case I want to check my period. Unbelievable what they preload onto this thing. But I finally found out that they have this list view of apps, which was a nice find because they come stock with this grid view, which is completely unusable. It's gotta be the worst UI on any product I've ever seen. But pro tip is you can switch that over to this view, which is at least somewhat usable. Frankly, I find that because the UI is so bad, I really end up not really using any apps. And we'll get back to that soon. It's one of what I think are kind of the fatal flaws with the Apple Watch. But ultimately, I use it mainly as a way to kind of get messages or phone calls on the fly, and an exercise monitor. So when it comes to my own use cases, I find that the Apple Watch is best around the home for me. I'll throw it on when I'm inside doing my kind of family stuff, moving around the house, moving around the yard, maybe go for a walk. And it keeps me from the dreaded scroll, which I get on my phone, where I've always got my phone on me, maybe a text comes in, a phone call, something, and I end up finding myself scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or who knows what when I didn't even intend to. So the Apple Watch is kind of nice inside because I can leave my phone down and I can walk around, and if I happen to get a text or a call that I feel like it's important for me to take, then I know it, and I almost never actually respond back on my watch, but then I know that I can go get my phone, I can deal with it, or whatnot. Most of the stuff I realize that I can just totally ignore, and so it ends up cutting down my phone use time while I am at home. Even around the house, I have found one big problem. I have a 7-month-old baby, and whenever I'm holding him, he of course wants to touch it, and he can trigger everything that it does. So that's a big issue, and I don't exactly know how to fix it. The other use I have for it is as a fitness monitor. I find that it is kind of nice to track steps, to track exercise, things like that. But normally I'll, as I said, throw it on a rubber strap, go do my exercise, keep track of it. It then syncs with my phone, and I take it off and move on with my day. Now, I know it's not necessarily the coolest move for the fashionistas, but I do sometimes double wrist the Apple Watch. Generally, I wear it on my right wrist, and I wear normal watches on my left wrist. And I will sometimes go out with this just here, or at the very least around the house. I usually throw it on my right wrist because I'll have a nice watch on my left, and I don't necessarily want to take it off or move it. Now, if I go to a party or something where I actually care about what I look like, this is a little bit too much for me. Maybe I'm not quite that nerdy. Although, to be honest, I am the watch guy to most of my friends, so I can kind of get away with it. Ultimately, I find that even with several iterations, they haven't really found a killer use case for the Apple Watch. The things that I get from it are practical to some extent, but they're certainly not have additions to my life. And that's where it really falls down as a product. I feel like there's a place for it amongst even serious watch collectors' collections because it does have some utility, and frankly, it's cool and interesting to keep up with the mass market. However, as something that is a really important addition to our lives, they just haven't hit it yet. It doesn't work well enough. It doesn't do anything good enough. It's basically a really cool Casio. It's a nice functional item that works as a beat-around watch, or when you need a specific function, wear it around the house and cook with it, that type of thing. What's ironic is that this watch basically does nothing. It tells the time, and even that's pretty hard to read, as you can see. But I end up getting more utility out of this. This watch does everything, but it doesn't really impact me at all, because the things that it does, I don't particularly need. Now, this one maybe does nothing, but what it does do is it makes me feel good. It connects me to humanity. It reminds me of craft and care and art and design and all of the kind of great things in the world, the things that we care about, strive for success, an attainment of goals. Everything is kind of wrapped up in this object. And this object really is kind of soulless and has nothing. Now, if it really added to my life, then that would be one thing. But since it doesn't, it leaves me with a bit of an empty feeling. So when friends come to me and they ask me what I think of the Apple Watch or if they should get one, I tell them I think it's a really cool watch for $500 or $600 or in this case maybe $900. It's nice quality, it has some decent functionality, it looks pretty good for what it is, you get cool design like this great strap system, but it really doesn't fulfill the same things as really, really great horology. So I'm not worried for 1 minute about this encroaching on this territory. In fact, I have a lot of customers and have heard of a lot of people that never wore a watch, and they got an Apple Watch, they started wearing it, and they realized they actually kind of like having a watch, but because it's not particularly functional for them, they started thinking, hey, maybe I want a Rolex, maybe I want something a little bit nicer, and then a certain percentage of those people end up realizing there's a whole other world of really fantastic art class horology here. So it's a bit of a gateway drug, perhaps. I definitely don't think it's a cataclysmic event unless you're in the industry making $800 watches, in which case Apple just ate your lunch. Look, I know most people will never be able to afford something like this. Heck, I couldn't if it wasn't my business. But the reality is there are a lot of great mechanical watches in the $500, $600, $700 range. Seiko makes some amazing stuff. You can get into some really cool vintage stuff. So I would urge anybody looking at an Apple Watch to maybe buy the cheapest one and save a little bit of money to buy a cool mechanical watch. See if you catch the bug. Now, for those of us who already have the bug, I think that it's totally reasonable to try an Apple Watch if you keep looking at it. This idea that you have to be a mechanical guy or you have to be a quartz guy, it's nonsense. This thing has a really good use in a lot of our lives, and it's worth checking out for honestly what is the price of a strap for a lot of our mechanical watches. So grab yourself one, see what you think. I think it's worthy to have in the box, but man, you're not gonna get me to trade my nice watches for one of these. So all of these Apple Watch killed the mechanical watch stories can die.